our study of Acts, simple, what used to be simple community, but now is deep community. This continuation is going to be through a pretty neat look at Scripture today. Last week was amazing when we went from talking about this guy named Saul to moving into talking about the Apostle Peter, and we just got to hear what Vanessa read, where those two apostles, Saul becoming the Apostle Paul, and then the Apostle Peter, they're both doing a work here, and we see it right here in the book of Acts through chapters 9 and 10, almost seamlessly. Like there's Saul's conversion, and then there's Peter coming in, and what we're going to read today is pretty epic. What we read last week with the healings, the physical healings of Dorcas and Aeneas were awesome. So Peter's just doing an incredible work, but they opposed each other because of this idea of what we're really getting into today, which is the fact that, I don't know if you know this or not, but if you're not Jewish, you would be considered a Gentile. We would be Gentiles. So the whole reason that we are able to come and gather in the name of Christ, because he loves us, because he opened up the door for us to be his children. And it's this time in Acts where we start to really dig into that. And we really get to see that. And so thanks be to God that he loves all of his people. That he came for all of his sons and daughters, that they might have a way to him. So I'm just really excited about this, but I'm not gonna kid you. This is one of those texts that kind of catches you off guard. And anybody ever been caught off guard by something, like encounter something you weren't expecting? Like you're probably looking at it. For some of you, if you're a visitor, you're like, is this guy really going to preach? We already heard he's doing Bible study in a bar. What's next? So, hey, and by the way, just in case you didn't know, I used to do church in a bar, and doing Bible study in a bar in Calera is actually a great place for people, especially Baptists. They won't ever find you there. And but it's a great way to witness to people and get to know waitresses and people that you're hanging out with, and you can pray for them, and they see you coming in once a week. And man, you know what? There's not necessarily a lot of Christians or saved people necessarily going into bars, at least not ones where you will find them. Right? Let's be honest. So, but you may bump into some Methodist guys there, and they're cool with it, and I'm cool with those guys. So, but the thing about it is it's really neat by being in there, because we get to witness to lost people, and that the people we talk to who aren't going in church currently. And so I thought that was just the perfect location. And you got my Baptist brothers who are in my group, first night we're there, they're like, all right, Joe, we just got to ask, why'd you pick this place? And that's when I got to drop knowledge on them and tell them, hey, we're going to be meeting here for 6 months to a year. We're going to be getting to know people. This is a great place. It's in our community. It's not just a bar. It's also we're not at the Crow's Nest or anything, but that's next. We're going to Red Zone and having our D group there, and we just love it. We love doing that. It's just been really, really cool so far, and people see us in there with our Bibles and eating chicken wings and laughing, and it's a good time. So, so this is to see someone having a Bible study in a bar is like that would catch people in the South off guard. People seeing me and I love this, by the way. I was talking to some new friends over dinner the other night. It's amazing the people that will come up to you and they're just being themselves. They don't know who you are. They judge the book, right, by the cover. And they're just like dropping some serious F-bombs, whatever you got, just some great adjectives and verbs and nouns. And I'm talking, these guys are creative, but they'll talk to you and they're just being real, right? And you're just listening, yeah, man, and you're hanging out and conversation sooner or later gets to, so what do you do for a living? Oh man, yeah, well, I'm a pastor at church in Concord and Calera, and dude, I'm so sorry. Hey, look, my wife just called, our baby's dying, I gotta go. It's like, why? Why? It's okay. You don't have to, I'm so sorry. I was talking like that. Well, do you usually talk like that? Yeah, well, dude, I'm just a guy. I'm not Jesus, And you know what? I don't think Jesus would punch you in the mouth or pull out the soap. Your mom might. But, it's just, and this is the reality of who we are. And people get caught off guard because they see a guy with tattoos. And especially when I used to have this really, really, really epic beard. I'm just saying. Testify, Jacob. Stand up, say amen. That's what I'm talking about. So no one would see me coming. I love catching people off guard in that sense that they don't expect me to be a pastor. And I get to be real and have conversations with them before they find out I'm a pastor and then close up because they don't want me to find out who they really are. And so I catch people off guard, and meeting in a bar doing church catches people off guard. And maybe there's something in your life that catches you off guard. Maybe there's something out there where if you ran into a guy who looks like he's from Afghanistan and he started to witness to you about how much he loves Jesus, that would probably catch you off guard, right? You would think he's probably a Muslim. But there are guys who used to be Muslims who are now Christians all over the place. And just the same to be said, there are a whole lot of guys that look just like us that are now Muslims. And so it's just one of those things that can catch us off guard. But this is the thing. I want you to really understand this, and this is what we've been kind of going through. We can get caught off guard because looks can be deceiving. Looks can be deceiving. If you just look at the outer shell and you don't get below the surface to get to know the person, you're missing out. We must go deeper. So I want you to see that this idea of being caught off guard, like last week we were caught off guard by these supernatural healings that Peter did in the name of Jesus Christ. Physical healings, yet these supernatural healings where many came to know Christ by what they witnessed Peter do. And then, so when I say that, I want you to understand that here's what I want you to grab onto if you don't hear anything else, because we've talked about judgment, we've talked about how we treat others, how we judge people by looking at them. We have something already kind of preconceived notion in our mind about people. Here's how I want to encourage you this morning. And this is what I want you to grab onto. You don't have to worry about what others think. I want you to hear me. You don't have to worry about what others think. You need to focus on showing them Jesus. You don't need to worry about what other people think about you. You need to focus on showing them Jesus. And we're going to flesh that out because that may seem somewhat harsh, So we're going to spend this time kind of fleshing that out, looking at this word, because here's the thing. It's easy to say that we don't need to worry about what people think about us or what others think about us, but the truth is, if we're all honest, we can say that, and I don't care what they think about me. Yeah, I got tattoos, whatever. I'm a preacher, get over it. But the truth is we're sensitive. We get our feelings hurt, if we're honest. Some of you just straight up cold, you don't care, and that's like, it's kind of cool, but it's also not. It's like, that's going to be a miserable existence. So I would just say that as we flesh this out, I want you to understand that you don't have to worry about what others think, but instead, if you're doing what we've been called to do, it's not what people think about you because of the way you look, because of the way you used to act, or because what your profession is, or whatever they judge you for. It's not about that. If your life's focus is about showing them Jesus Christ. So we're gonna look at this scenario in Acts chapter 10, starting in verse 1, where this cat named Cornelius, man, he catches some people off guard, and this is really cool. So I want to set it up by starting. I'm actually going to start Acts chapter 9, verse 42, and then we'll just read through. So this is what it says. Acts chapter 9, verse 42. And it became known throughout all Joppa, and many believed in the Lord. Now this is after Peter doing his two miracles. And Peter, he stayed in Joppa for many days with one Simon, a tanner. That's going to come back into play in a minute. So verse 1 in chapter 10, at Caesarea, there was a man named Cornelius. Now, don't miss this part. Cornelius is a centurion of what was known as the Italian cohort. We'll get back to that in a minute too. Verse 2, Cornelius is a devout man who feared God with all his household, gave alms generously to the people, and prayed continually to God. Now, verse 3, about the 9th hour of the day, which is about 3 p.m., Cornelius has an encounter. Verse 4, it says, verse 3, it says that he saw clearly in a vision an angel of God come in and say to him, Cornelius. And look at this in verse 4, and he stared at him in terror and said, what is it, Lord? And he said to him, your prayers and your alms have ascended as a memorial before God. And now send men to Joppa and bring one Simon who is called Peter. He is lodging with one Simon, a tanner, whose house is by the sea. Chapter 9, verse 43. The angel just gave him the address. So verse 7, when the angel who spoke to him had departed, look what Cornelius does. He called 2 of his servants and a devout soldier from among those who attended him, and having related everything to them, he sent them to Joppa. So last week, this is what we said. And this is where this really starts to play out, not just in last week's message, but as we continue through this book of Acts. And we start to see the people that Peter is encountering in his journey. And what we said was that the gospel is the good news to both saint and skeptic, right? To one, it's renewal, and to the other one, it's rescue. But to all who believe, it's salvation to the Lord. So that's what we know that about the gospel. It's the good news regardless. It's the good news. And so right here, what we're seeing is that this man, what catches people off guard, what would have caught Peter off guard, what would have caught Jews of that time off guard, is Cornelius is a centurion. And what a centurion is a Roman soldier. And he's not just a soldier, he is a leader of 100 men. In this particular case, it says that he belongs to a cohort, right? Which would be like just a cohort is in today's time, a company of soldiers that would belong to a legion, which would be kind of, I guess, like a battalion. I never served, so you Army guys would have to correct me on that, and soldiers. Don't forget our Marines and Navy and Air Force guys. So, this guy was a Roman. Now, in case you've forgotten, the Romans had a big part in executing Jesus. But yet look again. This Cornelius guy, who is a centurion Roman officer, a commander of 100 men. I mean, he's in the Roman army. He belonged to this Italian division that would have made up this cohort, which would have been a part of a legion. And I think it took there's I believe 6 centurions in each cohort, and 10 cohorts in a legion. That's a lot of dudes. 6 centurions in a cohort, and each of them have 100 men. And then all those guys belong to a legion. So that's a lot of authority. And so this guy not only was a soldier, but he had authority. He was in power. And so why would this catch Peter off guard? Because Peter was there when the Romans came and took Jesus, along with the Pharisees and Sadducees. That when the Roman guards got involved, and he was there when Pilate was talking to the Jewish people who was calling for Jesus' life. And this is one of those guys, you think like Saul was hunting and persecuting Jews, right? The Romans, they didn't throw rocks at people like the Jews. They put them on a cross. The Romans were masters of execution. And so we see this, and this centurion, and look at verse 2. Not only does it give us his background as a Roman centurion, but in verse 2 it says he was a devout man. A devout man who feared God. And not only did he fear God, it says that he taught his whole household to fear God. This man was a believer, and he was following after God, the God of the Jews. He believed. And you know what? That's if you go back and look, this isn't the first time that happened. But it is, pretty rare. But in Matthew chapter 8, Jesus actually encountered a centurion. Matthew chapter 8, verse 5, it says that when he had entered Capernaum, a centurion came forward to him, appealing to him, "Lord, my servant is lying paralyzed at home, suffering terribly." And he said to him, "I will come and heal him." But the centurion replied, "No, Lord, I'm not worthy to have you come under my roof. But only say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I too am a man under authority. He is a man under authority with soldiers underneath him. He was a leader. He understood what power and authority meant. So he's telling I'm not worthy to have you come to my house. But he said, I say to one, go, and he goes. And I say to another one, come, and he comes. And to my servant, do this, and he does it. He was a leader. And in verse 10 it says, when Jesus heard this, he marveled. That's pretty epic to make Jesus be marveled. Jesus heard this man talk. He said, you don't have to come to my house, just say it. Because I'm a man under authority. I give orders, I tell people what to do, and it happens. You have authority from God. Just say it. And this made Jesus marvel. Made him marvel. And said to those who followed him, he said, truly I tell you, no one in Israel have I found such faith. I tell you, many will come from east and west and recline at the table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, while the sons of the kingdom will be thrown into the outer darkness. In that place, there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And to the centurion, Jesus said, go, let it be done for you, as you have believed. And the servant was healed at that very moment. These guys, do you see what I'm saying? These guys, like, if you've seen The Passion, or if you've seen a Easter cantata or whatever, or read the scriptures about Jesus' crucifixion, the guards, the Romans that were doing were just brutal. I mean, they killed people for a living. But what I want you to get in this message is that these Roman guards spent time hearing the word of God proclaimed through the gospel of the men who spent time with Jesus. And through that, many believed. Not just the Jews, but many others. People you wouldn't think. This guy's got authority. He's got power. He doesn't have a desperate need. He's got servants. But yet, verse 2, it says he's a devout man who feared God with all of his household and gave alms generously to the people and prayed continually to God. Dude, that is sick. How many of us can say that? This dude is living the Christian life, and he's on the outside. He's not a Jew. And so this is just where it gets really beautiful. He's devout, he feared God. Let me explain something to you. The reason I say you don't worry about what others think, you just focus on showing them Jesus, because Cornelius, no one saw him coming. No one saw him. He caught people off guard. He was a Roman centurion. And because this world is temporary. We've been talking about this for weeks. The things of this world are temporary. To be and to serve in the Roman army is much of a privilege, or as much of a power it was to be that big and that powerful. It still only lasts for a time. There's a reason that the Roman army isn't occupying those places anymore. Because someone sooner or later comes along and takes down that nation. And by the way, celebrate your freedom this week. because I don't know how much longer we've got it. Just being real. We're heading in a really bad direction. So, but this place is temporary. This place is temporary. So you know what? We need to pray for our country. We need to pray for our leaders. We need to pray for the things going on in this world. The way the media spins everything. We need to pray that all of that would be fixed. But you know what? What we really need to do is focus on eternal things, not temporary things. You don't need to worry about what others think. You need to focus on showing Jesus while you're in this place. You focus on showing Jesus. Because who you believe in and how you live that out, it matters. Who you believe in and how you live it out matters. You know, Cornelius was kind of living this discipleship life. Cornelius had a D group with his family. And he didn't really know what he was doing. He believed in the Lord. He had an experience that was causing him to lead his family as we're commanded to lead our families. He was discipling his family before he was even discipled. So in this life and in the next life, how you live and how you steward your time here in this little temporary chunk, this is where the temporary and the eternal kind of come together. How you live this life out matters because it interconnects with the eternal. So if you stop focusing on what other people think about your past, what you look like, how successful you are, they talk bad about you. But if you stop worrying about that and you just focus on showing those people Jesus, you're doing exactly what He's called you to do. He's called you to love God. He's called you to love people. And let me tell you something. If you show people Jesus, those who are only right now, their life is going to be temporary. They're transformed through you showing them who the Jesus who rescued you and renews you. When you introduce them to that Jesus, they become rescued. And what happens in that moment is that Jesus Christ is known. Christ is known. And you know who gets the glory? God does. When we share Jesus, if you would just focus on showing Jesus, that's all you got to do. Focus on showing people Jesus. Then Jesus becomes known and God gets glory. That's what it's all about. And, you know, you want to talk about just being completely caught off guard? Because, you know, Cornelius was a Gentile. He was a Roman soldier, a commander, a leader, right? Not only was he one of the opposers of the Jews, you know, but people, Christians, would not look at this man and expect that he believed in God. They killed God. They participated in it. The Jews really killed him. They just had the Romans do the dirty work. And so it's just amazing. So Cornelius would have definitely caught some brothers off guard. But I want to look here where this is something where Cornelius is caught off guard, because he says that in this text, he says that he's visited by an angel of the Lord. Do you see that? I think it's verse 3. It says about 3 p.m., he clearly saw a vision of an angel of God come in and say to him, Cornelius. And dude, this scared Cornelius pretty bad. The word terror is used. That's probably the right posture for encountering an angel of the Lord. But this is what's amazing, is what he said to him. He catches him off guard. He's terrified. Catches him off guard. He's terrified. And then he says to him, this angel of the Lord. Now imagine if an angel of the Lord said this to you. Hear this. Your prayers and your alms have ascended as a memorial before God. And now send men to Joppa. Your prayers and your alms have been seen as a memorial before God. And I want you to understand something about that word memorial. I don't know if you really know how important that word is. We have a Memorial Day, right? But memorial is so big, because I always say that I've got a word that I think is really important in the Bible, and it just so happens is this word in the Greek is what translates to that word. It's menemasanon, memorial. It means reminder. It means to remember. And it's not just in that the fact of remembering to just, oh, I forgot. But it's actually, for example, when it's used in the Old Testament, this reminder, this memorial, in Genesis 8:1, it says, God remembered Noah. Now, this doesn't mean that God merely just recalled that Noah was in the ark. He didn't just remember that he was in the ark. That it includes this idea, to be sure, but more than this, he knew that Noah was in the ark, but it's so much more than that. It means that God is acting on Noah's behalf. So when this angel says to Cornelius, your prayers and your alms are a memorial to God, He is with you. He not only knows you, He not only remembers you, but He is acting in your behalf. I love that word. And then we see where the angel gives him the address to go find Peter. He tells him, take some men to Joppa and go find Peter. And we're going to get into that next week. But God is leading Cornelius to belong. Cornelius was a Gentile. And this is the thing. We see in the Gospels where Jesus healed a centurion that believed. So this wasn't the first Gentile that was saved. But I will tell you this. This is the first Gentile mentioned in the book of Acts. The first Gentile mentioned in the book of Acts. Cornelius, a centurion who was a devout man who feared God with his household. He gave alms generously to people and prayed continually to God. And he was visited by an angel and said, what you're doing is a memorial to God. It's worth remembering. So he tells him, go get Peter, because we're about to make you legit. So he sends 2 men to go get Peter. And so look what Cornelius does after the angel tells him what to do. Cornelius, and we see this in verse 7 and 8, Cornelius acts in obedience. He acts in obedience, and he sends him, and he sends these men, but notice who he sends. He sends people who he trusts. He sends his servants, and he sends a soldier who attends to him. He sent these men to go find Peter, trusted men. And this is what you have to understand about what I want you to grab onto this, is Cornelius, nobody would have thought to disciple Cornelius. He believed, but he still needed guidance. So God sent an angel of the Lord and said, hey, there isn't a Jew in town that's going to come to you that's become a Christian. There's not a Messianic Jew in town that's going to come to you and disciple you. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go get one of the apostles, and he's going to come to you, and he's going to disciple you. Dude, that's strong. An angel visits you and says, I'm sending somebody to disciple you. And so the big idea that we have to see here is you don't worry about what other people think. You can't worry what others think about you, because all that junk is temporary. Your past is temporary. Today is temporary. The things that you love today, you won't like tomorrow. The clothes that you own today will be out of style next week. The car that you drive may break down. Or you know, if you're still rolling the Pinto, high five, way to go for staying true, man. But most people want the latest and greatest. But all that stuff is temporary. So this big idea is you don't worry about what others think, because that stuff is just for now. Instead of worrying about what people think about you because of your past or your occupation or how successful or how unsuccessful you are, don't worry about that. You focus on showing them Jesus. You focus on showing them who you believe in and how you live that out, because that's eternal. All this other stuff is temporary. You don't worry about if they call you names. You don't worry if they look down upon you. You show them Jesus, because Jesus, he looked at the people who were nailing his hands and feet to the wood, and he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. The gospel is the good news to the saint and to the skeptic. And when I'm telling you today, the big idea I want you to grab onto is that you shouldn't worry about what others think. You need to focus on showing them Jesus. I know I'm saying that primarily to Christians, to the saints in this room, but I'm also saying it to you who are skeptical, because you're here. God has brought you here. Understand that God has a purpose for your life. He is calling you to something. And this is the thing. He wants you to know He has a plan. He's got you. Wouldn't it be awesome for you to give your life to a God who is going to remember you and walk through the rest of your life with you? No matter what you're facing. And everybody in this room is dealing with something. This God is faithful. He was faithful enough to send His one and only Son, born of a virgin, lived a life perfect in the flesh, so that He could take your sins upon Himself, die on a cruel cross, and on the third day be raised to life, ascended to the right hand of the Father, sent his Holy Spirit to dwell within you and said, hey, be ready, because I'm coming back. Question, church, are you ready? Because this place is temporary. Are you ready?